Hi, Artemis Paint here. I've written a 27-page free ebook on dobbing, and you can get the free ebook by going to my website. You'll see it in the sidebar. If you've been following my channel, you will know that free doesn't equal rubbish. It's a quality, no-fluff ebook that's worth reading if you can read or are willing to learn to read form. My ebook gives you my dobbing method, and I don't hold information back. I don't use statistics or front-runner methods. I just use form and trainer patterns. In this video, I'll explain why dobbing is theoretically a plus EV trade. In addition, I'll explain the best and quickest way to find trainer betting patterns. And you can use this trainer betting pattern model for any trade. So I'll see you after the intro. So I'll assume that you know what dobbing is. If you don't know what it is, I have an article on my website explaining dobbing. The link to this article is under the video. There are two topics in this video. The first topic is why dobbing should work in theory. In other words, I'll explain why there is value in dobbing, and I'm not someone who uses the word value loosely. The second topic is how to find trainer betting patterns. Although I'll explain this through dobbing, these principles can be applied to any trading method. So let's get started. Whenever I develop an idea into a strategy, I always want to know that there's a solid theoretical foundation for the strategy to have potential to win. I never try a trading idea out simply because someone told me it works. For this reason, I'll explain why dobbing has potential value as a trading strategy. We know that the Betfair SP is highly efficient. What do we mean by efficient? We mean that the SP reflects the horse's true probability of winning the race. Importantly, the SP doesn't reflect a horse's probability of dobbing. I'll explain this with two extreme examples. So we'll look at two fictitious horses, namely horse A and horse B. Horse A has odds of 10. The horse is consistent and always runs to form. The form indicates that horse A is marginally better than the other horses in the field. However, horse A doesn't have a turn of foot. In other words, the horse is unable to accelerate at the tail end of the race. And this means that horse A is often beaten by a challenger at the tail end of the race. Now, most races are not true run races. Therefore, if horse A is marginally the fastest horse in the race, the horse is likely to face a challenge towards the end of the race. Horse B is a national hunt horse. This horse also has odds of 10. But the horse is such a bad jumper that he only makes it around the course 10% of the time. However, horse B runs so fast that he's guaranteed to win if he completes the course. In this example, both horses A and B have odds of 10. Now, let's assume that these odds correctly reflect the horse's probability of winning the race. It should be obvious that horse A has a much better chance of dobbing compared to horse B. Now, before I go on, some of you might be thinking that, doesn't this mean we can go with dobbing statistics? The answer is no, it doesn't. When a horse has high dobbing statistics, the in-play market will eventually adjust. Once the market notices that the horse doesn't show any finishing speed at the tail end of the race, In order for the horse to dob, it might need to perform better than it has in past races. And the other point is that not all horse races are the same. The race conditions such as the going might not be suited to the horse. In addition, there might be strong competition in this race compared to past races. If the consistent horse is in a race in which it's not good enough to win any prize money, the trainer might tell the jockey to go easy on the horse. The trainer might think that if he can't get any prize money, he might as well try and get the handicapper to knock a couple of pounds off the horse's weight for a future race. I'm not going into form in this video. I explain how I use form for dobbing in the free ebook. What I will say is that I look for horses that have had a good last time out race, and the form suggests that the horse could win today's race. This is to do with trainer motivation. If the horse has a good chance of winning the race, the trainer may be motivated to make sure that the horse runs well. And what I'm trying to do here is pick out horses that, on form figures, haven't been doing particularly well. However, the horse's last time out race suggests that the horse is on form. And in the races previous to its last time out race, the horse might not have run well, or it could have excuses for not running well. In other words, it could have been running over unsuitable conditions or against tougher competition. Our edge comes from the fact that the betting exchanges can't yield SPs that simultaneously reflect a horse's win and dobbing chances. If they tried to account for dobbing, they would be leaving value for layers of the win price. Incidentally, this is also why bookmakers dislike and restrict smart each-way backers. An each-way bet consists of a bet for the win and a bet for the place. For example, if you back a horse for £10 each way, you're betting £10 for the win and £10 for the place. And even with their big over-round, it's difficult for the bookmakers to create a single list of odds whereby they're always on the right side of value for both the win and the place odds. So, for example, let's assume that horse A has a good chance of dobbing. If the betting exchange tried to reduce horse A's SP to 9 in order to avoid giving value for dobbing, they would be leaving value for pre-race layers. The betting exchanges are unlikely to make such an adjustment because if you back or lay all horses at 10s, you should only break even. In other words, the betting exchange odds are known to be efficient on the SP, but not on the horse's chances of dobbing. In the example of horse A and horse B, both have equal winning chances. However, they have completely different dobbing chances. Therefore, if the betting exchange SPs are efficient for the win, they can't also be efficient for the dob. So the bottom line is, there is likely to be value in dobbing. However, we still have to find this value. I'll explain how I learnt that trainers have different methods, and I'll also explain how following the form journey leads to the next idea. When I first started backing horses, I used the form book to develop strategies. My first ever strategy was based around backing last time out winners over the jumps. I was selective about which last time out winners that I backed, and I had strict criteria. However, after the first season, I'd lost money. I analysed the data and I found that there were some trainers whose horses that I frequently won on, while there were others who I consistently lost on. And because my strategy involved betting on last time out winners to win again, I came to the following conclusion. Some trainers are better than others at keeping horses on form. So I changed my strategy and just focused on the trainers who I felt did keep their horses on form, and that's when I gradually started to claw my money back. As I got deeper into racing, I started to look at different strategies, and I noticed that different trainers' horses fitted each strategy. Therefore, my conclusion that some trainers are better than others at keeping horses on form probably included a false assumption. The false assumption was that all trainers are trying to keep their horses on form, and this is unlikely to be the case. There are trainers who bring their horses to form and try and string a few wins together. Then there are other trainers who allow their horses to drop down in the handicap and then try and win a race. Then they allow their horse to drop down in the weights again before trying to win another race. And there are many other methods that trainers might have. So the conclusion that I have now is that all trainers have their own training methods. And each trading method that we use taps into certain trainers' training methods. Now, you don't need to know what the trainer's training method is. You just need to know that certain trades will work with certain trainers. And dobbing speed horses is no different. There are some trainers whose horses I won't touch with a barge pole even if the form looks perfect. And there are other trainers whose horses that I know will run a good race when the form is in their horse's favour. In my book, Directional Trading on Horse Racing, I explain several ways in which we can look for trainer betting patterns. Here, I will explain the easiest way. Firstly, you start with an idea. I call it an idea because only once your idea becomes successful can you call it a strategy. The second thing that you can do is pick an easily identifiable horse based on its form. You want the horse type to be narrowed down. The third thing that you can do is list which trainers the trade works on and the trainers your strategy doesn't work on. What I'm trying to do here is keep the first and second factors as constants. Dobbing is a constant, it's not a variable. And the horse, strictly speaking, isn't a constant because no two horses are exactly the same. However, if you can narrow down the horse type on the basis of form, it can be regarded as more of a constant than a variable. So that just leaves the third factor, which is the only variable, and we're trying to divide trainers into those that our dobbing strategy works on and those that it doesn't work on. So you have to keep a spreadsheet and list trainers as you go along, and this isn't as time consuming as you might think. All you need to do is put a trainer name into an Excel spreadsheet. In addition, you can look at the betting during the day. There can be patterns here. For example, there's a trainer whose horses I follow. They dob when they drift and are heavily backed during the last 2 minutes pre-race. However, if his horse follows the right-hand graph and gets backed all day and drifts after 2 minutes pre-race, the horse is usually a complete non-trier. And I don't know why this is the case. I mean, perhaps, Connections wanted to bet on the horse just after 2 minutes pre-race. And if the horse gets back during the day, Connections might feel that they're too late to get value, and therefore they might save the win up for another day. But anyway, it's basically about creating a list and creating notes in a spreadsheet. And if you do this, you'll be surprised at how often the same names come up in both groups. That is, the trainer that the strategy works on and the trainers that it doesn't. And this is where strategies can lead to more strategies. When the form meets my dobbing criteria, I watch the race and the in-play odds. I also do this when the trainers are on my negative list. And you can divide the negative horses into two categories. Those where the odds shorten in play, but don't dob, and those where the odds pretty much only lengthen in play. Basically, these horses look like non-triers. They never get into the race at all. And with the non-trier category, I lay some of these horses for a small amount of money and allow the horse to run. I'm laying a small amount of money in this case for relatively big liability. However, if I figure its value, I have to go for it. So this is an example of how one strategy can lead to another strategy. And it's not as if I had to look for the second strategy, it just presented itself. So I use this model of analysis for all my trades. You just have to start by defining the type of trade that you're going for. With the horse, it's usually easier if you're looking at horses with good recent form. This is because when there's hidden information, stables have more options on how to bet on the horse, and this will make it harder to find betting patterns. So, if you're interested in learning more about dobbing, you can pick up my free ebook. You'll see it on the sidebar of my website, and the link to my website is under this video. So that's all for this video. Take care and good luck.